Welcome to episode 7 of
Savage Discourse.
Savage Discourse, baby. I'm singing now for our intros because I did it last time.
Is that the new theme?
For me, it is.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to episode 7 of Savage Discourse. Today's episode is on leadership.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting. And contrary to what Kyle thought, leadership is actually not a lead boat, like a lead ship, like a leaden ship.
Oh.
It's very different than that.
I didn't know that.
No, he didn't know that. I had to tell him that. He didn't even know.
I guess we're even now since you don't know what an anchor is.
But the two of us can actually form a complete boat crew since both of us have like half of the information we need. So anyway, welcome to episode 7. Last week, we actually had a bonus episode and a regular episode. Last week, we talked about the very common and not pretentious at all named the variations of variations in the perception of human experience. And we also had a bonus episode that was a monthly recap that Kyle and I are going to be doing once a month around about. It won't really necessarily capture the whole month, but it'll capture like the last few weeks. Maybe it will capture the month. Maybe we'll be lucky and everything will line up.
Yeah, we'll see.
Be like the Da Vinci Code.
We might do this one at the beginning of the month, see what happens.
Oh, yeah, just go ahead and do it.
Knock it out right now.
Do it next week.
We're recapping the future.
The future. That's called prognosticating.
Oh.
And anyway, so Kyle said that he was written in by a fan who asked Kyle what his favorite battery was. What's your favorite battery, Kyle?
The watch kind. I love those guys.
The little button cells.
Yeah, man.
Like the C2025.
Whatever they're called. I don't know
32s.
their God-given name, but the watch batteries. They also double as scale batteries.
Their American birth name.
Yeah.
They do, yeah. Button cells actually, when I worked at Radio Shack, they actually have a lot of, like, people would come in for them for what are they called? The hearing aids. Aids and watch batteries and
smoke detectors.
Smoke detector, yeah. Smoke detectors, I think, are 9 volts.
Oh, yeah. I hate those 9 volts.
Yeah, 9 volts are weird. They don't really feel right in your hand, and they don't. Everything else, every other thing in battery is cylindrical. Like the small button cells are just like a smushed, teeny tiny cylinder. But like those rectangular prismatic batteries are just so strange.
Yeah, my least favorite battery by far.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I know we we can agree to disagree, but I think that we see eye to eye on this.
Actually, I changed my car batteries.
Yeah, those are huge rectangles.
I don't like those.
What what pray tell? I'm curious. What caused your ire against that very, very specific brand of battery?
It's the shape.
Okay. Well, like most prejudices, they're not logical.
Don't tell me how to live.
Don't tell me how to live.
I will have the first car powered by watch batteries only.
You'll get to the end of your journey at the end of the block before you have to recharge.
I'm gonna collab with Elon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not. I think he's gonna be like, really? Watch batteries? You're like, it's the future, Mr. Musk. By the way, you do smell very well, very good. Is that a musk I smell?
You think he's heard that before?
No, I don't think he has.
You think he's laughed before?
I see him laugh all the time. He probably laughs at all the peasants. People who don't experience reality on his very unique level.
So leadership.
Speaking of Elon Musk, leadership. So, thank you for tuning in today. The topic is, as Kyle said, is about leadership. So we're going to talk about that. Kyle and I have both been in leadership positions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I have.
I believe I have. I'm willing to believe I have.
I mean, someone told me I was a leader, and then I didn't break the business.
You didn't ruin the business.
Yeah,
my
leaders doing.
They brought you a bunch of eggs, and they were like, "You're in charge of these. Don't let them crack." And you're like, I'm gonna mama bird these so hard.
I've already made an omelet.
They turn around to tell you one last thing, and you're like slamming the omelet. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I see how things are."
I can be trusted with anything but food.
Yeah. I think honestly, well, this actually goes into leadership. Yeah, that's true. At a job that I've had before, where I've worked with various individuals, a large sample, and everyone in my field would like castigate me and like castrate me for saying this. But because you're not supposed to do this, but a lot of the reinforcers for the way that we would teach individuals, we would utilize what's called tangible reinforcers, and a lot of those are like gummies and snacks and.
What kind of gummies?
Well, I have to think really, really far back. It's been 5 months. Let me think. Something with like an N, and maybe like towards the latter half of the middle of the alphabet.
An N?
Could have been O. It's Mott's.
Ooh!
And so, that's speaking about that. Yeah, I could not be trusted with that. And that was a principle that we had to tell our, and obviously it doesn't happen all the time. And you just, when there's hundreds and the kid hasn't had, eaten one in like a year or so, you probably maybe if, the snacks are not great that day, you might.
If they're expired.
If they're expired, absolutely. And so, but like, anyway, that's like not okay. It's not ethical to do. And, so yeah, leadership.
I used to do some unethical stuff with food too at my job.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your job? Because I'm curious to hear at your most recent employment how. First of all, that there were ethics related to food, and secondly, how you violated that ethical food code at the place you worked at.
Well, we had a little Christmas show, and
no. People don't know what you did.
Yeah, they do.
What did you do?
I worked in an adventure park.
Okay, and what role did you have there?
I was the adventure park manager.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a Christmas show with Santa Claus at the adventure park. And he would hand out cookies, and I would inspect that hut all the time.
You were the hut inspector?
Yeah, man. And they
Did you have to like push people out of line to get first in that role?
No, I was like, I'm the manager. Go to work. And they thought he was being very generous with the cookies. He was not. And Kyle was just getting like 30 a night.
Oh, they thought you were okay. So they counted inventory at the end, and they thought that he had been handing all the cookies out, but he had only been handing out what the paltry sum with one lone spotlight on like one tiny cookie that's left.
Yeah.
After you got after it.
Yeah. So I need to make a formal apology to Mr. Claus.
Oh,
I did not mean to get you fired.
Have you noticed a maybe potentially related or correlated decrease in the swag and loot, the raw weight of that every year since then?
What?
Have you noticed a decrease in the raw poundage in terms of the raw weight of all the gifts you got each year from Santa? Has it decreased that?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So I made up for the last 10 years in cookies. I took it back from him.
Well, the thing, actually, I think that what you're describing is actually this beautiful prophecy, because when you're a kid, not a prophecy, it's like a life cycle of the cookie myth. Like you give to Santa when you're younger. And by the way, if you still believe in Santa, don't listen to this part. But like if you when you're younger and you believe in Santa, you put out cookies to help him come down the I guess, which is apparently like, I guess it's our way. When you think about that ritual, the very commercial pagan ritual of Christmas giving, which is based on that pagan ritual, it's really interesting to think like, oh, he's bringing us iPads and computers and a new child, and we're gonna give him crappy cookies.
Let's give him 4 cookies and a glass of milk
that's warm by the fire and probably curdling by the time he gets.
I'm sure he couldn't pull these out of his magic bag if he was hungry.
What a hilarious exchange rate of gifts. And he, good for him for being so resilient and so understanding. He probably practices meditation.
You think?
He'd have to. I mean, the stress of the job is probably such that if he hadn't, I mean, trying to get to every house and especially all these different people in the world who don't even have chimneys, like.
Although I would gladly work for like 24 hours straight, just hell, if I could have 364 days off after. Gladly.
Yeah, that man's work ethic is, it's two pronged. The majority of the year is, it's kind of questionable, and he just drives a sweatshop with individuals that are smaller than him, and then the one day a year he really goes in.
Mm-hmm. He gets after it.
So either he's the most brilliant capitalist or the brilliant, the division of labor, and he's just really got it figured out, or, maybe he's gaming the system.
Would you say he's a leader in his field?
That's beautiful. I love how you tied that back. I would, as far as jolly large men breaking into every person's house in the middle of the night and eating their sugary charcuterie they leave out for him as a gift in exchange for the thousands of dollars of technological stuff they're going to buy again next year. Yeah, I'd say he's got that market nailed.
Yeah, it's capitalism right there,
baby. I don't think anyone else competes with him other than Bezos.
Oh, Bezos probably. Santa probably does all of his work through Amazon now, honestly. Bezos can get it done quicker.
That's right. Okay, well, so we've talked about two leaders, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Claus.
That's 3, John.
That is 3 leaders.
And we talked about us, too. So that's 5.
That is 5. So yeah, I mean, it all comes full circle. You find people that are experts in their field, and then you try to emulate that. As far as Mr. Claus is concerned, I mean, I guess I never got the dirt bike that my parents said I would get for Christmas if I got all A's on my report card every grading period of 7th grade, and I did not even come close. But the magic of Santa was ruined because I wrote him several letters and was like, my parents told me that if I got all A's for several cumulative successive grading periods, that you would bring me, they would get a dirt bike from them, but if not, to ask you. And I just want you to know, full disclosure, that is statistical. It is a statistical long shot for that to happen. So can we make a deal? And he never wrote me back 1 and 2, and he never delivered.
Wait. So they said that your parents would get you the dirt bike, but if they didn't, you could ask Santa.
Yeah,
that is such a good cop out.
Isn't that?
You're like, you know what? We're not going to do it, but all your hopes can be on this guy, and he's the asshole if things go wrong.
Well, for that reason, I no longer, support any wildlife reserves in that area of the world. I just want everything to suffer and crumble because that man has robbed me of a childhood that I could have been spent in an arm cast because I had a dirt bike and probably would have wrecked it. Okay. So leadership. So thank you guys for enduring that. We're back on track.
We'll see.
So so Kyle has been in a leadership position at an adventure park where, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what did that leadership position look like for you? What were your duties?
Honestly, I did a whole lot because when someone got fired or quit, they didn't really believe in rehiring them. So everyone's scope of their job description just kind of expanded. But
yeah, it sounds like you were probably. I know I've made this reference before. It sounds like you were wearing a lot of hats. You were jugging a lot of plates.
Lots of hats, and I had to wear a helmet on top of them, so it was pretty crowded under there. Mostly, I was in charge of training, but just telling people what to do throughout the day. There was a lot of downtime. Sometimes, just is a tourist industry. So.
Sometimes there was a lot of downtime.
Yeah, so it just depends on the time of year. Sometimes it's super busy. Sometimes. We have to shut down for various reasons, like the cave collapsing.
Like the literal place of business where it supports customer interactions just falls in on itself.
Yeah,
that is a very unique occupational hazard.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd have that working at like a dentist office or like a brewery.
No, probably nowhere, honestly, except this place.
I think you'd probably lose your license to practice or your commerce license. Or is there a commerce license? Is that a thing?
What, in this industry or just in general?
In general,
I don't know.
Okay.
Write in if
if you know how businesses independently operate and if they require a commerce license.
I don't think that's a thing.
I don't think it is either.
Let's make it. Let's patent the commerce license and charge everyone to sell stuff.
That's brilliant. Like patenting the patent process.
Yeah, I'm looking into it.
That is a smart way to build passive revenue streams.
Yeah, I'm about to capitalize on all of Bezos' success.
That's what
That's what we're about.
So your leadership, okay, so I can see the scope, and you basically you were in charge of a few, very and you had your duties, and then it just expanded as other people were not filled in, and then you were expected to do everything. And okay, so my leadership position was at a clinic where we worked with individuals with autism using the field and instructional methodologies from applied behavior analysis. And the word that we use as a licensed sorry, those are two different things in the state. As a credentialed behavior analyst, it's a BCBA or board certified, and because the state of Kentucky requires licensure in order to work with private insurance companies, I'm also licensed in the state of Kentucky as well. So I'm a licensed BCBA. I got more letters after my name than like if you spilled an alphabet soup on the ground. And that's why I sit so tall and mighty in my throne.
I see.
I could rearrange the letters and make a funny anagram.
Have you tried it?
No.
Oh.
If I use my name and the MS, BCBA, LBA afterwards.
Oh my God, you have another name in there.
Probably. Maybe I should put that on my email and say, like, it's up to you to break the code and determine what field I'm a professional in. I may be able to help you, or I may have less than any knowledge. So in my position, I was a clinical supervisor, and I was in charge of roughly underneath of me, we had we had 4 different people in those positions, and we all had somewhere between like 10, 15, maybe 20 registered behavior technicians. And so we were directly, and each one of 1 or 2 behavior technicians were in charge of the direct service provision for a client. So that means that on our caseload, we knew we were between 10 and 16 clients. And so we were in charge of writing plans, doing parent training, going to ARC, and which is Academic Resource Committee, or the IEP, Individual Education Plan, meetings, and creating programming and stimuli, and teach and training the RBTs on that, and making sure they carried out program fidelity with a high degree of fidelity, carrying out programs with a high degree of fidelity, maintaining the ethical code. We also, so we did a lot of stuff. So, and I've done that for, I did that for 2.5 years. And, before that, I basically did the job clinically without the supervision of RBTs underneath of me. And then at my job before that, I actually was the assistant director of a behavior department at another organization. And I was basically had the same things. I had some RBTs under me, but I was also doing a lot of direct therapy. So I was writing the plans, and I was also implementing them. But yeah, the last job I had where there was no direct intervention, I would step in to model and to demonstrate some of the protocols and skills that I wanted the RBTs to acquire so they could use it. But most of the time it was really hands off. It was very much coaching them. So that's my leadership.
Nice. We've both been around the block.
Yeah, we've taken a stroll.
Yeah. How you like leading?
Seeding the sites. Honestly, I'm going to tell you something, and I hope you don't look down on me for it, but we've been through a lot, and I think our relationship can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Oh,
I love it. It's literally one of my favorite things, and it's something that I've vetted myself a lot and for, and to be. And you wouldn't know that if you knew me casually. If you knew me as you know me, Kyle.
Yeah, I still don't believe it.
Yeah, nobody believes that I can take off my smiling comedy mask and put on my life tragedy mask and be a human being.
Your professional pants.
My PPs. Put on my PP.
Peace. After this, I've got kind of a bad taste in my mouth after this last place, but it'll take me working in a non-leadership position for 1 week, and then I'll be ready to lead again, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Whenever the C word, whenever it kind of swooped down and spread its dark talons and veiled our world in its dark wings, I kind of felt good to get a little break. The Human Health Services, it's really nice to have, and I've said this before in previous episodes, it's nice to get a break from everything, but I definitely feel that pull. I feel that that's a very purposeful, meaningful call for me in my life, at least. And I think what we've talked about, I think you when we can get into it because I want to know more about your experience and some anecdotes and stories. But I know that you kind of left with a bad taste in your mouth due to some management above you, superior management, and that kind of I felt I kind of have a similar instance as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of do the bulk of the pretentious narrating and leading. So why don't you kick us off this time?
Oh.
So, tell us about. Well, actually, before we get into all that, sorry, before we do all that, let me just stop you right there, Kyle.
Before you get started,
before I'm gonna let you get started, I'm gonna prevent you from getting started
let me
again.
cut you off before you begin.
You start and I'll interrupt.
So,
what is leadership? What is leadership? What does that mean?
Thanks for that input.
Let's get started, Kyle, right away. What do you think about leadership? What is that?
I mean, geez, leadership is the ability to lead. I don't know. It's like I like leading by example. I mean, that's how I like.
So you're
to
very practical leader. You're very demonstrative.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I wouldn't ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do.
That's good. There's data that shows that leading and obviously leading by example is one of the best ways to galvanize and to motivate the team, because if you sit in the back room and tell people what to do, but you never display any behaviors of belonging or authenticity, people are just going to not do what you want them to do when you're not around.
Yes, I have been in those studies.
Yeah, I am those studies. I am both sides of those studies. So you said a leader is somebody very, very, very philosophically and just sucking the marrow from the bones of this concept. Just that its leadership is someone who leads.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you got? You got a Webster's.
Actually, let me pull out my pocket reference manual. It's the 5th edition.
Oh,
I do have that, by the way.
I'm sure you do. How long ago was that? How many editions have been out since?
Oh, I haven't checked. It's probably an iterative. There's it's probably like Kids Bop. Like there's probably like 15 to 25 now.
Man, the only thing worse than a pocket reference manual is an out-of-date pocket reference manual.
I know. You pull it out and you're like, oh my god, this went bad 2 years ago. None of the statistics and sources of reference are accurate or line up.
It's gone sour.
It's starts withering away. That would be awful for my book collection because I have not read a lot of them. So anyway, the point is, for me, leadership. How do I define it? So I'm going to offer up a provisional definition rather than an operational definition because I think it's going to be different for everybody. But like what I think, for me, what is most like what I think of leadership is I think it's twofold. I think there's two big steps, and you talked about the first one is to easy, is
it?
to well no I've just got a coffee, so I'm trying to keep my thoughts in order. You always do this to me. Is to galvanize your constituents, is to make your subordinates, or your your superiors, to make everyone feel like they're heard and make them feel supported, like what they say to you, if they're your direct supports, if they come to you, that to me. So the place that I was at, and in any agency where I provided supervision job duties, I always said, and I would never say this to the families, but I operated, it was, for me, a happy therapist does happy therapy. Mm-hmm. And if you have a happy kid, that's great. But if a happy kid comes in and the therapist does not feel heard, they're not feeling supported, they're not getting the resources they need to be successful, things are going on outside of work, and we bring all that into it, into work with us, then then you've got an unhappy therapist with a happy kid. And just imagine that in the worst case scenario, you have an unhappy therapist and then the kid comes in, or the adult, or whatever setting you're in, and they're just in a terrible mood. I mean, you're setting yourself up to lose hours of therapy without any real benefit, because the relationship between, and it's kind of always like that with psychology, behavioral sciences, any direct service, like the relationship you have with your client and that relationship they have with you is really the driving force of that relationship. What kind of adds that extra edge to that relationship, and whether or not people trust you at all. And so to me, I think you hit on that, is that you really have to lead by example and really show them that you care and that you're willing to put your behavior where your mouth is, and you're going to act. And I think the other part of that is making sure that I guess maybe I said both of them, is that you're making sure that you are following I think maybe you said it and I just kind of elaborated on it, making sure that you're following the principles that you are demonstrating others. So not just doing it to show them, like, this is how you sweep the floor, this is how you interact with an angry customer, this is how you write your billing notes. Like, it's not just doing that, it's showing then, and if someone were to poll and do a cross reference of your work, would it be the quality that you expect from them? I think that's really important, and I think that adds to the authenticity of yourself as a leader. So I mean, I think for me, like, if I were to boil it down, I think leadership is motivating, and I would even say, like, to me, motivating is leading by supporting. Is not just being the biggest, having the biggest the biggest doink in the room and saying, big doinks only.
Big doinks only.
And just being there. I think it's, hey, I know that I'm in this leadership position, and you know that, and I know that, and I know that you know that I know that. That doesn't matter. Like, what do you need? What can I do to help you? What can I do to help you be successful? Because ultimately, you are in charge of those individuals, and they're adults, but, work doesn't have to be awful.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So that's what that's kind of like the word salad brain pasta of what I think it is. The Brian for sure. It's being a Brian right now. It's not being a brain at all.
That's how a coffee does to your brain. It turns into
into Brian.
Oh man,
where I can't
take another sip.
Okay. So yeah, I think so I think that's provisional, at least, to lead by supporting others, to lead by example, to help others, and I think that's kind of like the core of leadership. But then I also think you have all the peripherals around it. Like, you obviously have to make sure that you're meeting the bottom line, and you're following your supervisors, and you're making sure that you're upholding the company values, and you're following protocol. And so I think but I mean, all of those things to me are just kind of like standard operating procedures. Like, you have to do those, because if you didn't do those, you wouldn't be at the job.
Yeah.
But like, anyone can do those things and still be a terrible leader. Yep. Like, anyone can do those things and be an amazing leader. Someone can do not all those things and be an amazing leader too, and vice versa. I think there's an endless amount of relationships there. So, but yeah, okay. Well, great. Well, so why don't we, now that we've got the provisional definition of leadership, where we've kind of talked about that, why don't we talk about your experience as being a leader, and what your influences are, and how you led as a leader, and what you were really proud of, maybe things you weren't proud of, and why don't we start there?
Okay. So, when I first started leading at this job, I didn't really have any leadership experience per se. Like, back when I used to work in a bar, like, there was a point where I was like training all the servers when I was a server, but other than that, like, I didn't have any titles, or was getting paid more, just had to do more work or whatever. So no real responsibility there. So I kind of learned how to do it on the job. I didn't really have many people to learn from that was in the same position as me, just like my general
manager. I think that's very common.
Yeah.
They expect you to learn by osmosis.
Yeah, luckily my general manager, who didn't really do what I did, but he was, the general manager, the manager of the general things.
Is that what he's in charge of?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
They're like, all right, we need you to pick an order of something. He's like, I want you to order chairs. They're like, what kind of chairs? He's like,
my work here is done.
Any of them. Okay, how do you want the tables to be set up? Are there tables? Yes. Excellent.
Set them up.
Just an incredibly general. How is your team doing on their metrics? We're doing very okay.
Between 1 and 10.
Between 1 and 10. Like, can you give us a less general answer? Well, then I wouldn't be doing my job, would I?
I'm not the specific manager, am I? Anyway, he was really good. But definitely the best leader I've ever interacted with. So
That's awesome.
I learned a lot from him. He kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to be a better leader as much as he could. So when I first started, obviously struggled a little bit with trying to, figure out how to actually lead by example, but I got to it. But I guess there's like a scale, I would think, like, either you're a little too relaxed or too strict, you know what I mean? And I would definitely my leadership style is definitely more towards too relaxed, if I had to put it on that scale. But I mean, I think that's just the way I am as a person.
That's good insight to have, though.
Yeah, and I mean, everything got done. I mean, there wasn't any problems with it, but the I guess the guy above the general manager, will say, didn't like the way I led. He wanted it to be like a complete authoritarian,
cracking the whip.
Yeah, like, don't do anything. Do not lead by example. Make them do everything.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah,
that's very old school.
Oh yeah, he didn't really leave his office much. He just set him watch cameras and would yell. You know,
I am not surprised.
No. He's a bad man. But yeah, so we definitely our styles definitely clashed, and that's one of the reasons I ended up leaving, was just because he would not leave me alone about the way I did things. Which, I mean, obviously, I guess I should have just gave in and did things his way, since he was the boss's boss. But I mean, I just didn't ethically feel like that was right. I mean, he literally wanted me to just pawn off everything on everyone else and like not really do things myself. Like, if he saw me doing stuff, he'd be like, why are you doing this? They should be doing this. Why you should be doing this over here, when I didn't even know that was a part of my job. You know what I mean? So he also expected me to be a mind reader, which,
yeah, you know, that is also a very old school. It's you know, it's very much, there's been a change in the ethos in the last few decades, I think, is evidenced by like the rhetoric in the books that I've been reading, and they, you know, kind of detail, you know, it really was very, like you said, very authoritarian. You know, I'm the manager, I'm the boss, typically, you know, an old white male. And, you know, I don't know why I have to explain this to you. Why don't you understand? You know, and it's like, that's a different world now. That's like a generational thing now, I believe. I mean, I think some people are just more rigid, but that's really, that sucks to hear.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was probably miserable.
Yep. And that is why the bad taste is in my mouth at the moment. But I'll get over it. Okay.
Oh, wait a second. This was not the bar. This was your most recent.
Yeah.
Oh
no, the bar was super cool.
Okay.
We just got drunk all the time.
I completely, I was like tracking everything you were saying except for the setting.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't really change much.
I've got it translated now. Okay, yeah. No, it doesn't. Okay, everything.
At the bar, when I was like serving and teaching people how to serve, it was fine because I still had like that buffer of, you know, decent managers that were honestly just servers who got tricked into being managers and then realized they were making less money and got yelled at by corporate every week.
Yep.
Kind of the same situation as this, except I was one level down, so I never had to deal with corporate.
There is an excellent book, and I can't remember who wrote it or what it's called.
Or what it's about.
It's called like the 7 Sins of Management, like the 7 Sins of Capitalism or 7 Sins of Business Social. It was made, I think it was made by someone in like the IO Psych or Organizational Behavior Management or Performance Management subfield. Basically, that's one of the sins of management is they take somebody who is an excellent salesperson. And I've seen this happen at Radio Shack. This happened multiple times. They would take somebody who, or at least one time for sure that I remember, like they would take somebody who was who sold extremely well, and then they put them in a management position. And the problem is, the reason it's considered a sin in that analysis is that those are two entirely different skill sets. Yeah. Leading people, being a manager, being a supervisor, and then selling stuff. You know, now obviously selling, being a good salesman is a component of being a good manager. But, you know, a lot of people who transition into management and supervisor positions are groomed and vetted for a very long period of time until their boss, you know, determines that they are ready and can supersede that position and can absorb all those responsibilities. But a lot of people, a lot of managers just see the numbers and they're like, you know what, you're doing so good. We're going to move you on up. Yeah. And I think that ultimately that's a nice gesture, and I think that it means well, but it completely misses the point of the function of the jobs, and that they probably deserve something. Like they deserve maybe more money.
They probably deserve to be trained on how to be a manager.
Yes.
It's correct. Like taking a flight attendant, the best flight attendant, and making them a pilot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you've been in the side of this plane and you've made so many smiles on your little smile counter over here. We think you're ready to move up to the big boy seat.
You just demonstrate that pre-flight video so well. It's time to fly.
You know how you put your hands out like you're pretending to fly the plane? It's just like that.
It's gonna be real now.
It's just that easy. It's gonna be real now. All these lives are in your hands. Good luck. And slam the door behind. Slam the cockpit behind him. Okay, well, so what did you? So you said that you maybe felt like you were too flexible, which I relate to a lot in my leadership style. But we can talk about the nuances. Would you say that was something you're not proud of, that you would have done differently, or would you say that was something that you do feel like you did well, or that you didn't?
So I don't know. I mean, I'll let you decide. So it was the things I was too flexible on, like any position that's not like a salary position. We do like write-ups and stuff like that, to stack the book against people so you can fire them.
Yeah.
I didn't write people up unless I deemed it a serious thing. So dude above me wanted me to write people up for, everything. And I only did it for I think in the 2 years I was like a manager there, I wrote like 4 people up. And it was I think one of the times was he forced me to do it. Like he literally gave me the sheet and was like, sign this, because someone was late one time. And the other 3 times were like actual major safety violations, which, I mean, I was strict when it was important stuff like that, like someone's life's on the line, like absolutely.
Were you incentivized in any way to write people up, or was it more like financially, like you got a bonus or anything?
No.
Okay, so it was just more leadership style. Like when
one,
people step out of line, you better snap back at it.
He called me into his office one time and said, there hasn't been any write-ups in 2 months. And I know it's not going that well, so you're not doing good enough. And I was like, you don't think that the staff is just doing good? You don't think that maybe everything's working well? And he was like, no.
Wow, that really shows. So that's interesting, because that could have been an opportunity, if things were going that well, to incentivize the team, to add bonuses for the absence of those things, to praise the team, to notify maybe the leaders that they were preventing that. And he chose. I mean, that just shows you kind of the mindset.
And the entire time I was there was never any bonuses or incentives. There were like a couple bonuses and incentives given out to like his favorites, like he would pick favorites and give them out, but there was no like general like, all right, we're gonna add this incentive in or this. Like literally from the time I started to the time I left, there were like 5 or 6 like perks of being a manager that had been taken away, and nothing had gone up. Everyone's like, he kept changing the titles from assistant manager to like a different title so he could pay people 50 cents less when he moved them up and stuff. Like the job that I ended up doing was, I was getting paid, I think, $1 or $2 less than the person before me, just because he changed the title. So that,
that is a way that managers can save money.
Oh yeah,
and by squeezing more effort out of their production capacity.
Yup.
So, okay. Well, do you have any other thoughts or feelings about that? I mean, obviously, we're going to go into some additional stuff, but what was your favorite part of leading?
Oh, my favorite part of leading, I mean, I guess, was actually leading when I didn't have to deal with him. So if I avoided his office enough and ignored him when he called me on the radio, I had a pretty good day. I mean, I got to work with some really cool people. I mean, pretty much, I didn't have a problem with anyone there. Like, and they, I mean, respected me because of the way I did lead. I wasn't authoritarian. I didn't just yell at them to do stuff, and I would do anything I asked them to do. So when I asked someone to do it, like, they would generally do it with no problem, or ask me why, and I would tell them why, like the reason we do things this way over this way, and it all worked out really well, and it was a fun job. I mean, so like I got to learn a whole lot about like building courses and all that stuff. So I mean, I had a really good time at the job besides him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think in a previous episode, people don't quit their job; they quit their boss.
100%.
And I know that that you didn't coin that, but I think that's incredibly. I mean, that sounds like that was 100%.
Oh yeah, I'd still be there, and it didn't pay very well. So honestly, it's a good thing that I left, because I'll just be there forever. Although it pays a lot better than what I'm doing right now.
What are you doing right now, Kyle?
I was making a podcast and drinking coffee. This is my career right now.
Hey,
what?
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, dude. We're gonna get that gumball. Have we talked about that?
No, we're not. We're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, we are not gonna get that gumball.
That was your and I's thing. You gonna put it out there in the world for everyone to know?
Never mind.
There is no gumball.
There's no gumballs. Aren't exist.
They aren't be good. They don't.
Gumballs aren't good.
Well. Okay.
All right. How about you?
Man, I'm gonna try to abridge what I want to say because I have a lot to say. So I think my kind of leadership style was very much like yours. I was very flexible, and over the course of the 5 years that I've been in the field, and like the 2.5 years I was at my last position, and the different jobs, like cumulatively across different positions, I've become more, not rigid, but more inflexible when it comes to certain things.
Yeah.
And but so here's the thing, like, just because you have to discipline or you have to write somebody up doesn't mean you have to rob them of dignity, or you have to rob them of, like, and so that was kind of the tact I took, and that is actually from Crucial Conversations and Crucial Accountability, which is a book series. The third one is Motivator, or Influencer, sorry, and it's an incredible book series. There's about four, it's like McMillan, there's like 4 authors. Incredible book series, highly recommend. It's how I fashioned my way of giving feedback to people, and how to do it in a open, honest, and not a deconstructive or condescending way. But I think that I was very flexible, but I became less flexible, especially at the job I was at. It was very demanding. It was not. For the job that a BCBA or someone in my field usually holds, it had a lot of that, but it also had a lot more because it was a clinic setting, and because it was just really demanding. There was corporate goals, there were clinic goals, there were behavioral goals. There were literally every slice of the organization you could think of. There were metrics to hit, and all of that cascaded down, and I became less flexible, but at the same time, I always maintained a sense of respect. Like so there's a great book by Daniel Coyle called The Culture Code, which I pulled and then looked at last night again to refresh myself. And it's an incredible book about how he's I think it said that he did 5 or plus years studying the top 100 companies to determine what made their groups succeed, whereas so many other groups and businesses did not succeed. And there were 3 main takeaways, and it's the thing that I really think is important is vulnerability, and building that community where you can be vulnerable in. And that's 2 of the points. And to me, that was like that was my gospel. Like I use the word family. I use the word, this is my home. I was there more than I was at my house. I wanted to create an environment. I have just worked at so many jobs, blue collar, white collar, where going to work feels like the crappiest part of the day. And I hate that. I hate that. Like, that sucks. And I know people are going to say that's a millennial belief, and that's like a new age. Like, back in the day, we just worked until we died, and, we supported our family.
If you enjoy your job, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. You should be accruing no enjoyment. You should be sensing no pleasure from this at all. And that sucks. Like, I refuse to believe that. I refuse to accept that into my heart. And maybe that's because I live in the time that we live in. Maybe that's true. But the other thing is that to give away so much of your daily life and time to a place that you hate, that's just that math does not add up for your life. Like, that math, just, you are losing so much time. And I think that part of being mindful and meditating on that and being in a place that lines up with your values. Sorry, I know I'm getting off track. But this is something that I really am passionate about, is, don't waste your life doing something you hate. There are millions of different jobs and million things you can do. Just go try them. And they're probably not going to pay, and I'm not a financially driven person, which is, another thing I'm going to talk about in terms of leadership. Something I could have done a little bit better, but just follow your passion. There's a great book that I recently read. That's like my new slogan. There's a great book.
I know.
And
it's been your slogan. It's not new.
It's called You May. Well, that shows you how self-aware I am.
That's probably a good book on that.
You're like, it's called Shut Up, Stop Referencing Things. And it's called You Majored in What? And I can't remember the author's name, but it's basically chaos theory. That's what it is. You majored in
you
what?
Gave it to me and then I didn't read it.
Yeah, I know. I took it back from you and gave it to somebody else who hasn't read it.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. It's an amazing thing.
Want next.
Okay. I want it back. Put that back in rotation for me. But it's about chaos theory as it applies to, I'm following down a hole, but it's chaos theory as it applies to career planning. And the woman who wrote it has been in career centers and career and job, sites for decades. And she wrote this amazing book. And if you follow the exercise, to anybody out there who has any question about what they want to do or where they want to go, this book is amazing. And anyway, so in there she talks a lot about that. And it's just like, people, it's just to spend so much of your life. There's not, I don't think she says much about this, but for me, I hate thinking of going back to a job where I'm miserable. I mean, that literally physically makes me anxious and uncomfortable to know. And I know there's ways to manage that. And obviously, you don't always get what you want all the time, but to see something as a stepping stone rather than your destination.
Definitely. It's all about the mindset going in.
Yeah. So let me tuck this onion back up into a shape, because I've dug down into many more layers. So yeah, I built, what I really wanted in that was to be a cultural architect, which I say really pretentiously. And people, like, even when I say that at the job, they would laugh at me because it sounds so pretentious, but I really wanted to be that. That's what and that's why I'm taking a specialization course, and the one I am is because I don't want to work at a place where you hate to work there, where you just come in. Now, luckily, in the human health services, most people that we attract genuinely want to help people, and they're there for the right reasons, and they're there for the kids or for the adults or for, the support that they give. Like, we have a lot of good people, but so I wanted it to be a family, and because I was in a leadership position, I could do that. It comes from the top down. It can't start from it can start from the bottom up, but it won't maintain unless everyone at every level buys into it. And that's what I did. I was the only supervisor there for 6 months, maybe longer. And then there was 2, then there was 3, then there was 2, then there was 3, then there was 4, then there was 5. And, and each time, a new member of the leadership, it became this, this tapestry where we all added our values and our meaning into it. And so for me, that was kind of my leadership style, is that we had to uphold the rules, and we had to, but I was always cultivating a team. I was always cultivating vulnerability. And that's something that Daniel Coyle talks about in the Culture Code. A lot of leaders think that it's absolutely taboo to talk about a mistake you've had, or like, oh, I should have known this earlier, or oh, they did this wrong because it shows weakness or insecurity or that. And that's bullshit. It's just completely wrong, because nobody is perfect and everybody makes mistakes.
That's how you learn.
Exactly. There's no learning if everything you do is right, then either the simulation is broken or people are lying to you. And so that may be the case, but in both cases. But so so I've got a kind of a jumble of things there. It was based on dignity is respect. There's a book by Dan. I'm sure you've heard of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That is the book that kind of sent me down my path to like performance management and organizational behavior management and leadership books. And in there, he talks about a concept, which is stewardship. And stewardship is where you empower your team member, your subordinates, and the people that report to you to carry out the job where you're supporting them, but you're never, and you give them the freedom and the kind of space to do that and the autonomy. But you obviously are there to manage, make sure everything's okay. So that's kind of like the opposite of like, micromanaging and everything else. And I think it's a little bit more than like macromanaging. It's kind of more like, hey, I've trained you how to do this. I want you to do this. Tell me how you're doing. And I really did that. And that's not how a lot of BCBAs operate, because we have to implement a plan. We have to write these goals, and they have to carry out those goals. So what I did that was a little bit different than a lot of BCBAs don't do or don't feel comfortable doing, or, it's kind of too not behavioral to do this and too loose, is to just kind of, I was like, well, here's the program, but if it doesn't work, try this and this and this. And if that doesn't work, then you actually spend most of your time with the kid. You try something and tell me. And if it makes behavioral sense, we can make that part. And I would give people the option to do that. And that built a lot of trust and a lot of openness, because they saw that I respected them as professionals.
That's awesome.
And and so, but a lot of people are not that way. And so when we had I know the beep, I accidentally threw a B in there. When we had our second clinician, who's an amazing person, who actually has her doctorate in neuroscience. She's an amazing person. That she had a very different approach than I did. So she was very much by the book. This is how it is. Don't change it. And so there was actually a lot of kind of, structural kind of some the building settled on the structure differently, and things kind of shifted for a little while until I spoke and we spoke about it, and I kind of tightened things up on my end a little bit. But it's just part of growing your team. Is there's there's no such thing as having well, I guess you could be if you have like 100 people, but every new person adds their entire pool of understanding and knowledge to the thing. And so we were very very inclusive, very family based. I would sweep, I would clean. I was the receptionist at the beginning. We all had a cleaning crew that we all worked on. We had people assigned to different teams. We made sure that we did that, and sometimes we weren't able to. And ultimately we got a cleaning crew, but the cleaning crew, but the team was amazing when we had that. So, all of that is to say, that's kind of how I did things. That's kind of my the most important thing to me was vulnerability, showing the team that it's okay to make mistakes, because of the field we're in, and burnout is so high. Like most individuals in the position they're in only last 2 years before they're like, I'm done, I want to do something else. And for a career, that's the beginning years of your career, so it's over before it even begins. But it's so intense because you're providing direct therapy, so many hours a day. I mean, you get compassion fatigue. Mm-hmm. And actually, one of the things I did, which is another metric to show how much I cared about the team, and hopefully it went over that way, was I looked into burnout inventories that psychologists have created, and I modified the Copenhagen burnout inventory, there was like 3, and it basically asks across 3 different questions: personal based, work based, and then actual like client base. Mm-hmm. And then across those, you answer questions like, do you feel anxious about coming to work? Do you feel like your workload is too much? Do you feel like your home life? And you answer questions on a scale. And then I took everyone in the clinic, you filled that out, and I put it into an Excel, and I made a graph PowerPoint about it because I love Excel. Mm-hmm. I saw you laugh because you know it to be true. You know how I feel about numbers and digits and formulas. And basically what we discovered was, and I'm not going to I have the presentation on my computer, but I'm not going to get these right off the top of my head. But basically, like 37% was like work related, mm-hmm. and the other 2, which I guess breaks down to like 40, that would be like 30 and 30. They were roughly the same. They were work client based, and then the client based was the smallest, and then the other 2, the work based and the personal based, were almost the same. That means that the percentages of people rating that they were, and a lot of people, we had a nice little bell curve, so most people fell right in the middle, but we also had a lot of new staff and a lot of old staff, and I think that's why like the old staff were like, oh my god, I'm so sick of this, and the new staff were like, everything's great, I don't want to say the wrong thing, and they're fresh off the boat, they're ready to go, they're freshly minted, they haven't been in the trenches unless they transferred another agency. So, and what that was really revealing to me is that the team members that you have, the work itself was just as stressful and leading to burnout as their personal lives did. Yeah. And so that again, and that's why, and I gave a whole presentation about it and why I thought it was so important. Like, ask for help when you need it. When you have a client that's engaging in a tantrum and they're hurting you and they've been doing it for hours, take a break, step out of the room. You're not going to be a hero. You're probably just going to ruin your day, and you're going to eventually break, or you're going to have a breakdown. And so we tried to foster a very family kind of, we care of each other. That's what we said at the end of every meeting. Take care of each other. Keep looking out for each other. You guys are the only thing that we have here. Keep this is your home away from home. And that's how I did things.
Nice. I like it.
Thank you. I loved it. It was my favorite thing in life, like my favorite project while it was work. Like, I've told people, like, when we had corporate, and I'm not like, you and I are both not corporate guys. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not, waving a McDonald's banner around, wearing our, we're not branded people, we're very kind of independent thinking and like to do things on our own. But, every time we went to a group meeting, I told everyone, I told all the higher ups, and I was like, I know this is going to sound like I'm deep brown nosing, like I'm getting the back of my head covered in brown because I'm down nosing so hard. But like, I love this job, and I love the people, and I love the team, and I've never felt so supported. And that changed towards the end, but I felt that way for, I would say, about almost 2 years. And it was a great environment. But like I said, so, that was kind of what I was proud of / my leadership style. I did have to, writing people up and giving disciplinary actions is not enjoyable, but, part of whenever you accept becoming a leader, it's kind of just like, you just have to accept that, and I know you're not saying you liked it or didn't like it, and I'm not saying, you were told to do it because things were going too well.
Yeah.
But,
and in the situations I'm talking about where I didn't do it, it was like stuff where a verbal warning, it was like they forgot. It's not like they were not doing something.
People make exactly.
Yeah, it was like not having a headlamp on at the very beginning when you're in a room with a spotlight that lights up the whole thing. Like nothing, like it literally changes nothing. And I could be like, hey, turn your headlamp on. Remember to turn that headlamp on. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Or I could be like, hey, you're in trouble now. You get 2 more of these and you're fired.
Oh yeah, and what is that? And what image of you do they now have? You don't seem like you're there to support them. You're a disciplinarian.
Yeah.
Like So what's interesting about our field is that you can become a punisher, a conditioned punishing stimulus, and what that means is that people are not positively reinforced by you; they're negatively reinforced. So positively reinforced is that when they're around you, you add value. You give them compliments. You tell them how good they're doing. You may give them feedback, but they know that you mean it, that you care about them, that they can rise to those standards, and they know that because of your actions and your past and your behavior. And they go forward. But negative reinforcement is where they will do the bare minimum to avoid being on your radar, and then they will just stop performing. And that has been found over and over, is that people under authoritarian, disciplinarian managers who don't listen to them, old school managers who don't care, who say they care and then very clearly show that they don't, who are just metric pushers, who are just rank riders, those people are very quickly found out to not be part of the team and to not be what human beings need to succeed in a social and focused social experience at work. And they will just avoid you, and they will do exactly the bare minimum to stay off your radar, and that's it. And then they stop performing, and then you're like, why are our numbers always so low? Why would they want to succeed for you?
Yeah, there's no incentive.
Exactly. Exactly. So that was really helpful. Learning a lot about that. One of the biggest things for me when I became a leader that really was I was really scared to give feedback because I get really in my head about it, and I know what I feel like when I get feedback, and everyone does. So I got this great book called Thanks for the Feedback, and I thought it was going to tell me how to give feedback, but actually what it does is it's a 3 identity trigger, personal trigger, and then event trigger. I think I could be wrong, but basically they all, there's 3 different ways that people get upset when they get feedback, and it tells you how to receive that feedback, not how to give feedback. So I was like,
about receiving feedback.
Yeah, so it's about how to be better, which is funny. Maybe if you have to buy that book, you're not doing you're not doing so great. But I wanted to know. And so then I went from there, and then I went into Crucial Conversations, Crucial Accountability, Influencer, and then just, panned off in all these different directions. But those are definitely my favorite. And, I also love conflict resolution, and there's a lot of good books in that. But yeah. Do you have any guiding tenets or people that you kind of follow? Anyone that you listen to or that you kind of hold as like I emulate their model because I think it's valuable.
Yes.
Oh. Well, who might that be, Kyle?
So there's this guy named Jocko Willink, and
he's a beast of a man.
Yeah, this dude, he's pretty hardcore. He's I don't read many leadership books or know any like really famous leaders besides this guy, but from what I can tell, he's pretty damn good. He was a Navy SEAL, and he was the leader of a SEAL team. I think like the most successful SEAL team in history, if I'm not mistaken. Like they did a lot of good. And he retired from the military and went on to become an author and like a consultant for businesses for their leadership. He's got several books out. His most famous one is called Extreme Ownership, which is just basically if you're the leader, like you're responsible for literally everything.
Yeah,
like,
and I know that's a military ideal, but it's also very, it's very very true.
His big point is, I mean, like he learned all of it. I mean, he went into the military at like 18, like right out of school. So like it's not like he was like a manager at like a McDonald's and then he went to the Navy SEALs. Like all of his leadership training came from military, but he says it all translates over into the civilian life too. So,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So his thing is his big story the reason he got the name for the book, or like his big extreme ownership story, was he was in a battle in Ramadi, I believe, and he was in charge of the SEAL team, and there was this really complex mission they were trying to pull off, and just like several things went wrong, just a domino effect. And what ended up happening was one of the SEALs ended up firing on a group of people that were from there, like civilians from there that were working with them. So it was like two different militaries, but on the same team. And they thought that they were the enemy, so they fired on each other, and one of them died. One of the civilians died.
Damn.
So, and it wasn't his fault. He didn't give the order. None of the things that happened were his fault. But when they like called him up to ask him what happened, who's to blame, he was like, "It's me. It's all me." And he didn't know if he was going to get fired, discharged, like what was going to happen. And they ended up like really respecting that, and he ended up learning a lot from it, and they kept him in charge, and it all ended up working out for the best. So he kind of used that moving forward to teach other people.
And that's really powerful. And I think I've watched the video on YouTube.
Yeah,
where
he's got a really good TED Talk.
And I know that he said that somebody came up to him and was like, "It was me, and it's my fault. And if you need to fire me or discipline me," and he's like, "No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not your fault."
He was like willing to. He was like, "Yeah, just tell them it was me." And he was like, "No, it was me."
Yeah. And that's really, I think that's so powerful, because if your team doesn't think that you're going to be there for them, like, they may follow you, but, now that is a very fire and steel kind of, that, and, you need to have someone, they need to know they can count on you when they're going into battle or, an engagement. But like, in the civilian life, even then, like, they need to know that, if they make a small mistake, or if you make a small mistake, that one, it's not going to get blamed on them, and two, that, you are there for them if anything happens. And, you're not going to call them into the office and give them a brow beating or a tongue lashing. You're going to call them in and be like, "Hey, so let's talk about, that event that happened.
Yeah.
And, I know that you probably feel bad about it, and, I know, and, it's just something we have to do. And, I may have to write you up for that, and I hate that, but, let's talk about, kind of like, in the military, those are called AARs, after action reviews. And Daniel Coyle talks about that as well, that, to do those after every kind of big event, whether they're positive or negative, is really important as well. So everyone is moving, and that's one of the other, I think that's the other thing, is the value. That might be the third point, is that everyone is moving in the same direction towards that purpose. Yeah, that's that's good. That's a powerful lesson.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning about leadership or anything, look up Jocko Willink. He's got a podcast pretty much all about his military days and being a good leader and how to deal with the trouble of life. He's pretty hardcore. He's if that's your style, he's definitely he's not going to be like, "Well, you got to look inward." He's going to be like, "Just do it."
Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's kind of the David Goggins way too. And surely you know who David Goggins is, but if you don't, he is a 3-time Hell Week surviving Navy SEAL. Went through Army Ranger School, and what was the other one?
It was I think it was like Flight.
Yeah.
School, yeah.
Where
we'll do a whole episode on David.
Yeah, we need to do a whole. He's just incredible. Check out his book, Can't Hurt Me. We actually did our pilot episode, but I don't think that's available on YouTube. Available. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
We'll release that in a year.
Yeah, whatever. We've got some more quality under our belt. But that's kind of that's his way as well, is that his leadership style was so unforgiving and so brutal. He was there for all his boat mates whenever he was in the Hell Week and the BUDS, which is the basic underwater detonation and scuba demolition, and scuba class. Everyone knew they could count on him, but then when he actually became an instructor, he was turning people off because he was pushing them so hard.
Yeah, he was trying to bring them up to his level, and
and his level is amazing. It's so inspirational, but
no other human can match that.
Exactly. And so, I think that's, even when you're doing everything right, that's really important, because people kept coming up to him and telling him like, "Yo, man, like, we're not trying to work, we're not trying to work out like we're in basic anymore. We're not trying to, we're just trying to stay in shape." And he's like, "Well, then you guys aren't living the SEAL way, and I am, and, I'm not going to compromise." And he got, he and his either his superiors or people on his level, he had to
decided it'd be best for him not to be the leader.
Yeah. So, that's an example of, I think the leadership gone, everything going, being in the right position, but just turned up like a few notches too high.
Definitely. So that's an example of two different sides of that.
Yeah, and for me, and there's some few other things I want to say about some different, kind of like I think for me the summarization, but like, for me, like I had that same kind of phenomenon, but it was inward, not outward. So like I overinvested myself in this career because I loved it and it was so personally meaningful. And then, some superior positions above me changed. I was under a supervisor that I neither respected nor, valued the competency of. And I'm not somebody who, like you, I can't just be like, okay, I'm going to follow this person. It's like I wouldn't follow this person into a bag.
No.
Kind of thing. And, and things changed and leadership changed and, the culture slowly deteriorated. And so, but for me, the reason the comparison I'm drawing with that intensity turned up so high is that when things were not going well, because I was so invested, it hurt me. Like I gotten super burned out, super upset, super depressed, had a mental breakdown, had to call my mom whenever, some really, some difficult things happened, towards the end of my time being there. And, that's because, it's just, that kind of, being invested is really important, but obviously there is such a thing as, working 14-hour days and taking on too much and trying to, have your hand in too many, and I think that part of that was that the people, the culture eventually became there. We were not moving in the same direction. People didn't care about the things that I cared about. And I was, the only person banging the culture drum and the, over support the RBT. Everyone wanted to support them, obviously. Everyone's, I love my colleagues. I'm great friends with the large majority of them, but for me that was my thing. Like, yeah. And I was every single team meeting we had with our leadership team meeting, I was like, hey guys, let's think of an incentive for X, Y, and Z, and
shut up.
I know they're like, dude, we're so tired of this, and the truth is I could see that and I could feel that, and that really hurt, and it really sucked. But,
I can relate. There were several things like that I would bring up, like a broken record that I felt were very important, and I was told to stop talking about them.
Yeah, and I wasn't, I had the kind of negative effect where people didn't tell me that. They stopped responding and nothing ever got done, and I wasn't in a position to make that, so the people that were in those positions obviously wasn't a priority, and so, I just, it kind of sucks. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I could do a whole. I mean, that'd be a whole episode talking about that experience. But just about leadership, what to me. So there's a book by Dale Carnegie, which a lot of people reference, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that is a terrible title. I think that book came out in like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah, I've seen that title before, and I was like, this sounds dumb.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those really terrible business, like how to be number one. Follow this secret method. Yeah. They're not, kind of like the old school version of like a. What is that called on like the big thing, like the big pages where they'd be like, you're never gonna guess what happened next.
Oh, clickbait.
Yeah, but what's like the website where they would do?
Oh, that? BuzzFeed.
Yeah, it was like the old school BuzzFeed version of that, where like you'll never guess what happened.
You'll never guess what happens on these pages.
And, it's just the same stuff. But the book is actually really good, and there's 10 things that he lays out. But basically, all of them are saying, they're all based on the same thing, which is you need to validate people. Mm-hmm. You need people to be heard, and you need to validate them, which validation kind of is kind of like the central thread through all that book. And, that was really, I think that's true. People just want to be heard. When we go into work, we don't stop being human. We don't take off our skin and our body and our memories and our brains. We just shift into a different mindset, into a different modality. And, and I think that that's something that's very new. Like that is, I guess, a millennial thing, is that we want to be seen as people and we want to work in rewarding fields. Oh my God, that's so unthinkable that people want to follow their passions and do things.
Snowflakes.
Oh God, dude, it's just so funny. But and obviously our economy, everything was built on the backbone of the people that went through all these really traumatic. The last 100 years, we should do an episode on that. Like, just talk about how much has changed in the last 100 years, from like the Great Depression and suffrage and prohibition up to now. Like, with all with the wars, you have Vietnam, you have the Cold War, you have all the human rights revolution. Dude, anyway, the last 100 years, like I've thought about that. Like, I want to do like a book or something like that, because so much has changed, and there's people who are still living through the generational shifts, and So, but the most important thing, is I think, for anyone in any station, any part of life is to be heard and to validate and to feel like what you're doing while you're operating under the you at work is important and that it's meaningful. And I think a lot of leadership is based on status and position and on hubris and on superiority. Mm-hmm. And if you have to cloak your leadership style in those, dark colors and linens, like I think that you're probably insecure and you probably, and I don't want to say that sounds really like.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty accurate. If you have to yell at people to make them do what you want to do and threaten to take their livelihood away, you're probably not a happy person, and you probably don't feel too good about yourself. I think a huge part of being a leader is just being genuine. Like if you do everything that John just said, if you hear this and decide you're gonna just fake it and do all these things and tell everyone that we're a family, and then just follow these points step by step, like they're gonna see right through that and they're gonna hate you even more.
Yeah, and that's actually it's so funny because like when you have a boss that's just bad and they're mean and they're grumpy, like what to expect, and but it's almost more disrespectful to have someone who has kind of is bifurcated in that, where they like will tell you and they'll act like you're a friend, and then the next time you see him it's like the complete opposite of that.
I got a quick story about that.
Oh yeah.
The guy I hate, we need a name for him, so because I feel like I'm going to reference him a lot.
What about Carl?
All right, so Carl, one time it was a slow day, people were standing around. Should have been working, definitely, but there was a second in between them doing their mindless chores that they were hanging out talking, and he walked up to him and he started up a conversation with them and was laughing and joking around, just being super fake, and everyone could tell it. And then he walked over to me just out of earshot of them and told me I need to yell at them because they're just standing around.
And he's your boss.
My boss's boss.
Yeah, and
my boss was amazing. Can't say that enough.
No, yeah,
the buffer zone in between.
Yeah, you told me he's just an amazing human being. Yeah, that is wow. And so people talk. Like, and that's the thing, like people these things don't exist in a vacuum. Your team members are not going to not communicate about their shared experiences.
Oh yeah, I walked right over to him and was like, "Hey, Carl said."
Guess what, guys? I get to be the messenger for the thing that my boss should have told you because this is his company. Yeah, no, and that is almost worse because with one, like you can just keep an equal level of dissatisfaction with them, but when they are, they kind of play that two-sided game. You have to, you have to emit the energy to laugh at their jokes and pretend like it's not a show, and it's really draining, and it just feels so like a facade and just so surreal. And at least you know what you're getting into as someone who's just a D-bag. But
exactly. If you're dealing with a sociopath that thinks they're smarter than you and they can try to manipulate everyone, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it is. And they're probably going to do, and I could talk. There's not enough digital space on the internet for me to talk about my experiences with a supervisor I've had before.
Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Maybe. But, I guess what I want to say, the takeaways for me are vulnerability. When I made a mistake, I told my team that. Like, unless it was like something that I, legally or ethically, which I, there's nothing ethical, but like anytime there was something, like if I try to plan out and they had to enact the plan and it got them hurt or it got them bit or they got frustrated or it clearly wasn't working, I would be like, you know what? I'm sorry. That was my fault. Let's immediately change it. Let's talk about it. What are your experiences? And I owned it because if you don't, people are just going to they're going to sabotage you.
Yeah.
And
they know that this was your plan and it didn't work. And then if you blame them for it, it's pretty obvious that they just can't take the blame.
Exactly. And and people are not, especially in the society, I think the generation we grew up in, people are much more free. They're not just going to be, they're not just going to follow the rules. They're not just going to follow whatever the fad is and not just going to follow, listen to you because you're in charge. They're going to do what they think they want to do what they feel they're going to do. And so if you can't take accountability for that time and time, and I've seen this happen at my previous job, and I've, where, sometimes that happens where that person doesn't necessarily, where the staff doesn't feel supported, and then they just start sabotaging. They're like, well, I'm not going to follow this plan. And they talk about it, and everyone knows they're not going to do it, but the supervisor is always the last one to find out, of course. But, I found that being honest and vulnerable and just telling them, hey, I messed up. And on the same token, when I did something really good, my team was like, yeah, you wrote a really good plan. I didn't have to change it. Or like, yeah, that was really cool. It really worked like a snap, and they're doing so much better. And it's like, that's so great to hear, and the same for them. Like, you really followed the protocol, and look how much better your kiddo's doing. That's because of you. I just wrote the plan. You did it. Like, you guys are the miracle workers. When I introduced the team to families, these are our miracle workers. Like, we just write the plans and do it. And obviously we have a big role, but I just feel like people, and that's that validation I keep, that I'm talking about, is that it's so important. People, I don't know. You see the crazy examples when people feel not heard at work, or if they, crazy things happen, people, but, and again, like, I kind of want to go back to kind of how we kind of opened up this about disciplinary conversation. And I think one of the marks of a great and true leader is to be able to provide feedback or corrective instruction or whatever you want to call it without dehumanizing and without removing the dignity from that person.
Yeah.
And you can do that because, I have had it both ways over the course of my life. And I'm going to tell you right now, when somebody loses, when someone, has to give a disciplinary action, or I feel like it's unfair, or I understand it, and they take that and they wield that like a weapon, or they use it to demean me, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm the first person to sabotage anything that person does, because I'm not your child. I'm not your, I'm a coworker. Like, I'm another human being. Like, and if I made a mistake and it wasn't in my thing, or if I made a mistake several times, okay, like, let's have that conversation. There's no reason for you to be as irate or as disrespectful as anything else. So I don't know, and there's, like I said, a crucial accountability and crucial conversations are how I model my conversations with people based on. And I think they're incredible because they really provide you a literal task analysis step by step. Step 1, establish mutual purpose. Step 2, start with your heart. Explain why you're doing it. Step 3, there's 5 steps. Share your facts. Talk about their story. And it gives you this model for how it walks you through every step. And it tells you, like, the last part of the book is like when things don't go well, when people do bring their emotions to it, like how to handle that. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And there's a lot of ways, like, it seems like you're really upset right now, and this is really important that we talk about this, but I'm going to give you some time to cool down, and then we'll come back to it. Like, and also crosstalk. Like, well, you may be saying that I did this, but you did this. Okay, well, we're not talking about that right now. We can talk about that, like, after we talk about this, but we need to talk about this first. Yeah. And I had to learn all that, and of course, I had to do all that. So I think, again, all these things kind of come together to paint a very to paint a modern picture of a supervisor and a leader.
Yeah.
Is there any final thoughts or words you have about anything you've talked about, or about what you think a great leader is, or kind of summarize what you think, what your point is?
I think you pretty much covered it. One thing I did leave out about Jocko when I was talking about him. He's got another book that's it's not quite as big as the Extreme Ownership. It's called Leadership Strategy and Tactics. And it's more of a to the point, like point by point, like direct. This is how you should handle this situation, kind of like what you were just talking about. But it's written like a military field manual, basically, because that's his shtick. But yeah, that's really good. I've got that, and I read that, and it was good. It was back when I thought I was the problem.
Well, that's good. That's good that you were able to do some research, and then you were like, "Oh, it's not me at all."
Yeah, but
I did not get to have that same catharsis, because then I was like, "Oh, I am doing this wrong, and I'm not doing this right, and blah blah blah." But it must be nice to have that realization that it's not you.
Yeah, then I quit. So.
and then I was out.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So you cultivated the skill set to free yourself from misery and unhappiness.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I guess I want to say is I just feel like I'm just going to say it. I just feel like the majority, and this kind of fits in with the theme of our podcast, of a Savage Discourse, which is people just stop being people, like at work. Like, people just have this managerial mindset that human beings become fundamentally different when they go to work. And yeah, we're engaging a different set of behaviors. It's a completely different repertoire. We have different conversations. Everything, almost every part of us changes except for the fact that we're human beings and we're in this setting and we're operating in a particular role. But everything else is still there. We're just, it's kind of like you're using, it's like a Swiss Army knife. Like you're using a certain tools to do certain jobs. And obviously, it's one that you do more frequently for a longer period of time. But I just think that if people were able to, I think, again, the last thing is that the leader, I think if people can recognize, like, is to bring, like, there's a book I have called Bring Your Human to Work. And it's all about that. It's about realizing, like, it's the humanity. Like, we're not just working for this multi-million-dollar organization or mom and pop organizations. I'm a human being laboring under your employ for income. What is it called? For a wage. But I still have my dreams and ambitions, and treat me like a person and validate me and hear what I'm saying and allow me to contribute to the team. Make this a stewardship. Make this a family. Don't make this a prison.
Yeah. I like that.
You feels?
I feels.
You feel so?
Yeah. We're doing closing words.
That's all I got. Yeah, I mean, I could talk for a billion times longer about
like
experiences and books.
On this.
Yeah, I feel like we just barely scratched.
I'm also going to get a clicker to click every time you reference a book and see where we're at the end of each episode. My closing words.
You're going to be excited.
I'm going to need a triple-digit one.
They all come that way, Kyle.
I'm going to need a quadruple-digit one.
They all come that way. No, they don't. The triple-digit. Look at me being pretentious about clickers, because in my field that's what we use. That's an industry tool.
All right, my closing words. Just be mindful about what's going on at work. Don't feel like you have to stay somewhere. You can more than likely find another job you'll be happier with, making the same money, so you can work towards.
And if it's a little bit less, sorry, I didn't mean to talk.
That's okay.
You said what was the last thing you said?
I said you can probably make the same amount of money and actually keep working towards whatever your goals are, besides laboring away for someone else. Yeah, and even if it's a little bit less, that is going to be worth more to you than the differential in your wages. Exactly. Your peace of mind, your happiness, you're finding your tribe, you're finding your culture, every job has a work culture. That's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. And you just might not be a good fit, or maybe it's a terrible, maybe it's a toxic culture. Throwback to the it's toxicity. Yeah. And maybe you just gotta get out. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I've taken several pay cuts because I wanted something new and to feel like I was important and a part of something. Yeah, I just took my biggest pay cut of all time. Well, yeah, you did. And I feel 100%. I can't argue that. I have zero stress and zero income. And couldn't be happy. That is an interesting correlation. I know. Mo money, mo problems. I think I've got another month until I'm homeless. Yeah, we have a few weeks, and then you and I are going to be sharing a refrigerator box if we're lucky. My God, I could live in a dumpster if it had Wi-Fi. I don't care. If it had a Wi-Fi, that is a very fancy dumpster. I could do it. I'm trying to think of a world scenario where dumpsters just they just emitted a Wi-Fi signal, or that a company partnered with a dumpster company and they were like, yeah, let's just do it for our customers. We'll provide Wi-Fi while they're throwing their trash away for 3 seconds. You haven't seen the charter dumpsters? The what? The charter dumpsters. The internet company. No. Charter. They own Spectrum. Get it together, John. Yeah, this is why I need Wi-Fi in my dumpsters. So we can look things up, so you can tell me. I do a lot of studying on internet companies. Dumpster Wi-Fi. Dumpster Wi-Fi. I feel like that's a good note to end on leadership. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. This is our very brief. I thought we were going to get more deep there, but I guess we wasted so much time talking about other things. Yeah, we'll do it. Well, this will be episode probably 2. Part 2. And thank you guys as always. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a like, subscribe. Every little bit helps. We're a fledgling little best friend group podcast, and it's we love making content for you guys. Again, you can always leave a comment if you want us to interact in a particular way. We would like to thank Bob for always commenting on our videos. We would like for him to stop posting sex sites, though.
We have a number one fan that we're calling Bob who comments immediately the second that our videos go up at like 5 a.m. the following morning. And we get really excited and we look at it and it's a guy saying, go here for live free girls or free girls, cam girls here live. And we really appreciate his support, just his really unwavering, kind of lifting up of our purpose. But we wish he would do it in a less sexual way.
Yeah, let's try a question this time, Bob.
Yeah, hey, what? He's just gonna say, "Fine girls live?" Question mark.
Link. Dude, I would respect. I'd leave it up.
Oh, that's funny. That's right. Well, as always, we're Savage Discourse, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Don't forget to meditate. Bye.